Good Thursday afternoon. It's Jerry Miller. Welcome to the I Love CVille Show. We are live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. Folks, I have 60 minutes. I don't even know I'm going to get the content and the storylines to you in an hour. We're really at the brink of saying maybe we add a second hour to the program. Anyway, 21 states in our union see an increase in coronavirus cases as lockdowns are lifted. The increase in cases, along with the unrest across the country, and we're seeing that unrest now transform in places like Seattle and Portland, where Antifa is literally taking 6 to 7 blocks of Seattle and guarding a perimeter of these 6 to 7 blocks with AKs, with machine guns, and trying to take over 6 blocks of Seattle and saying this is now our country. So markets in turmoil. I'm watching them now on our screen in studio on Market Street, red across the board. A lot of stories we're going to get to. The Jefferson Davis statue tumbles, falls, crashes, gets destroyed, hauled away by a garbage truck to the dump. The Jefferson Davis statue on Monument Avenue yesterday, 11 p.m. in Richmond, Virginia, tumbled to the ground. Jefferson Davis, of course, the president of the the general of the Confederacy, head of the Confederacy. CVille Pride Festival canceled. The University of Virginia says SATs and ACTs and other standardized tests are not needed for the fall when you apply. Fall 2021. Remember when SATs and ACTs, SAT in particular, was the gold standard? Remember when it was the gold standard? When I was coming up, it was 800 and 800. Math and English, math and verbal. High you can get was 1600. I scored a 1480. 1480 on the test. And now it's not so much the gold standard. Virginia Tech and Harvard doing away, like other colleges, with the ACT and the SAT. How about gasoline prices? I'm going to show you an infographic that shows you $20, 20 gallons of gasoline in your vehicle today is $15 less than it was last summer. So you have more purchasing power at the pump. And a brewery opens, guys, or says it's going to open in the heart of Charlottesville in Midtown, a new brewery that never had a chance to open because of COVID. A lot to cover. Welcome to the I Love CVille Show, guys. My name is Jerry Miller. This program, thanks to so many phenomenal clients, and you see them on screen, I encourage you to support local. 2 of our favorites, intrastate pest and service companies, a home's best friend, 4 generations of family behind this fabulous 50-plus-year-old business. I mean, bona fide, honest people, interstate pest and service companies. And how about the good doctor, Scotty Wagner? Scott Wagner, physical therapy, chiropractic care, sports medicine. Scott Wagner is changing people's lives. And the Scott Wagner Chiropractic brand, get ready for a brand pivot, baby. And it's going to be massive. It's going to be impactful. It's going to be amazing. This is an amazing team, Scott Wagner. All right, Judah Wickower. I give Judah props. Let's run some headlines here. So 21 states see an increase in virus cases. I'm going to say this. As common sense people, and we try to deliver ear candy for your soul, knowledgeable, digestible news for you to take and learn from. 21 states see an increase in corona cases. Guys, the lockdowns were lifted. The economy was reopening across the country. We're seeing New York City reopening. We're also seeing better infrastructure in the market. And by infrastructure, I mean testing, tracing. When you have a reopening of economies, and you have more testing being done, and you have more medical infrastructure in place, you're going to get more virus cases. Okay? So I know this is driving the market. I know it's creating uncertainty. We will see more of this as more states reopen. It's just common sense. It is just common sense. And I need to cut to the chase, please. We have significant unrest over the country that has led to a couple of weeks of protests where people are really close together. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks for the testing lags 2 to 3 weeks behind at best. At best, it lags 2 to 3 weeks behind. More realistically, 30 days behind or so. You are going to see a spike, undoubtedly, as common sense, realistic people. You will undoubtedly see a spike 2 to 4 to 5 weeks after the protests that happen across the country. That's going to dominate the news cycle, and we will see how it impacts the stock market and Wall Street, because it's impacting it today. Let's go to our next headline. We went from macro to a little bit more micro. This from a sister city down the road, 60 minutes down Interstate 64, the east side of the Commonwealth. The Jefferson Davis statue toppled, tumbled, destroyed, just knocked over on Monument Avenue in Richmond. Judah, the thumbs up when that headline is up. Thank you, sir. 11 o'clock last night, the statue on Monument Avenue takes a header from its perch, from its pedestal, to the asphalt. By 11:30, the cleanup crew had Jefferson Davis in a truck heading for the dump. So it's happening across the country. It's happening in Portsmouth. It's not unique to Richmond. It's not unique to Virginia. It's happening everywhere. I am a planner. As an entrepreneur and as a business person, you try to see ahead of the market, and that's what I try to do. I'd like to see, maybe you would as well, to prevent the possibility of unrest, a plan from the leaders of our city of what we're going to do with the statues in Charlottesville. We're past the point of do they stay or do they go. Richmond and our House of Delegates and our House have already said you can take these down. It's your choice at the local level. So it's going to happen. How about we get ahead of it, much like we're asking the University of Virginia with its reopening plans and the lack thereof. This is called the management of optics, or the management of perception, the strategic planning of optics, which is undoubtedly a hired skill. We excel at that at this firm. I'd like to see from our leaders in our city what the plan is, because I think if we have some transparency, it could potentially prevent unrest in our beloved community. Follow that story closely. This is now 2 or 3 different Confederate statues going down in Richmond. Next story comes right here in our backyard at Thomas Jefferson's University, UVA. UVA says we do not need the SAT or the ACT or other standardized tests. And let me see that. Oh, you're a good man, Judah. I like that. Judah Whitcar is fabulous. He's our director. Remember when, don't you love conversations that start with remember when? Any conversation that starts with like remember when is going to lead to some ridiculous story, some hyperbolized story, or like, something that like, you know what I'm saying here. So let me start. Remember when we as students, maybe freshman, sophomore, junior, maybe you start taking the PSAT in the 7th or 8th grade. Okay, maybe you're doing that in the 7th or 8th grade, you're taking the PSAT. Remember when we had to take the SAT test as part of our college applications? We would be working for months in some cases for this test. Maybe you're working with fabulous tutors. Maybe like the tutors from Clayborne Education, its CEO, Lee Elberson, will join us later today. We had our number 2 pencils. We had our was it the Kaplan? Is that what it was? We had the test books where we took our practice tests. And you had the nerves and the stress of going into the testing facility. The testing facility often was at a school that you didn't go to, and it was on a Saturday morning, and you had to show up with your identification and 2 to 3 number 2 pencils that were fully sharpened, wait in line with people your age that you didn't really know, and everyone sat down scared and nervous and sweating because they knew the next handful of hours of taking the standardized test was going to determine if they got into their number 1 choice, their backup school, their 3rd choice, or maybe nothing at all. That's what I remember of the SATs. UVA, like Harvard and like Virginia Tech and like many other colleges in the country, are saying, de-emphasizing, deprioritizing, at least for fall 2021, these standardized tests. I'm going to be intrigued by this. I'm thinking. I think there is a clear, and I'm basing this on my personal perspective, how we're trying to set up our little boy now. So how I grew up, how I saw a lot of our friends grow up, the stuff that I read, the conversations that I have with Lee and people of Lee's intelligence level, and how we're trying to set up our little boy, our 2-year-old son now. There is undoubtedly a clear funnel, a clear path of success between having affluence and money in your pocket, having capital in your bank, and your son or daughter doing well or doing better than others on standardized tests. Long story short, your family has money, you have access to resources that other families don't. Those resources like tutoring, like test booklets, like online software, offer an edge or a leg up versus peers whose mom and dads don't have as much financial resources. So by removing these tests, at least for a beta period, a short period of the fall of 2021, you may further see the democratization of college acceptance across America. We're deprioritizing the gold standard standardized testing that undoubtedly gives an edge to people of means, and we're prioritizing a more well-rounded resume, the writing of essays, the accomplishments outside of the classroom that could potentially be more democratic and ignore black, white, Puerto Rican, white, Haitian, Asian, whatever it may be, or if your family has money. It's the democratization of education. COVID-19 has magnified and amplified the democratization of education. And the internet is going to make it even more, I hope, equitable. More equitable than ever. Let's go to our next headline. Guys, give the show a like and a share. If you like localized ear candy for your soul, hit the like button for me right now. We're live on 12 different Facebook pages. Share it as well. Share the show. Ed Lauterbach has got a comment. Interesting. So what's the evaluation? High school GPA, extracurricular activities, essays. P.S. My sons were supposed to take it this month. I'm all for it. I think, Ed, that is, and he just left that comment there, I think that is what the evaluation is going to be. And I'm going to ask that question of Lee Elberson. And why I welcome Lee Elberson on the show is because he's incredibly bright. He works in private and public schools as the CEO of Clayborne Education, works alongside them, knows them inside and out. First of all, I was so confused, and I find out a lot of our parents are. I was tremendously confused with how the governor laid out his plan for reopening for schools. I'd like to get some clarity from Lee. And then I'm also seeing the democratization of college entry here, but I'm also, as a man with a very analytical mindset, I'm very concerned that you're seeing an edge for private schools and education now because of their ability to pivot quickly and adapt to market conditions, much like a successful business needs to happen. I'm seeing the private schools adapt to the COVID-19 educational landscape quicker and more efficiently than the publics. So I'm wondering if there's a value proposition enhanced, increase for the private over public education? Very serious questions. Very serious questions that have generational type impacts for our community and your children and our children. The next story is gas prices. And like and share the show. We'll get to your comments. I love you guys. I love when you offer perspective on the program. And if you have a show topic you want to relay, put it in the comment section. Put it in the comment section. The next one's gas prices. Put the gas prices headline up. I love following numbers. I love numbers. Gas prices, we all know this, guys, have been so low. Well, we got some experience here, or we got some data to track just how low. Okay? Virginia included in the top 10 list of states with the least expensive gas. You got 50 states. We're in the bottom 10 and you want to be in the bottom 10 in this ranking from a gas standpoint. Put the table on screen and give me the thumbs up when it's on screen. All right. All right, keep it on screen until I tell you to take it down here. Charlottesville gas, a bone 77. CVille, a bone 77 a gallon. And dude, if you go to a place like Kroger with the Kroger points, you can get gas super cheap. Here's the really exciting thing is, compare it to last year. You're talking about basically 75 cents different there. So at the gasoline pump, if you're getting 20 gallons, I mean, you're talking in 2021 gallons, you're talking what, 15 bucks there? More purchasing power? Okay, you can take it off screen. There's so much value of watching the live version and the video version of this show. I love everybody watching on iTunes, and listening on iTunes, and I love everybody listening on Apple Podcasts, and our podcast is skyrocketing, and that's because of you guys. But the visual aspect, you see graphics on screen. I want to kind of put a bow around the gasoline storyline. I think what you're going to see is you're going to see over the next 60 to 90 days, before school opens, so I guess that's not even 90 days. What's that? 60 days or so? You're going to see two different kinds of traveling happen. You're going to see mom and dad and Junior and Sally, and mom and dad and Trey and Taylor get in a car and drive somewhere in a short radius for a getaway or to see some family. Gasoline prices will justify that. I mean, it's so cheap. Or you say, mom and dad, Trey and Taylor, get on a domestic flight and visit a mom and dad. It's going to be all regional and all local travel over the next 60 days. That's all it's going to be. And then we're going to get back into school. We're going to get back into school started in Virginia. And everybody's going to sit back, and we're all going to sit back and say, our little hellions are in the hallways over here, and we know they can't keep their hands out of their mouths or from touching each other. Let's see what happens when school starts back up again in COVID-19. So you see a little 60-day of activity, a little 60-day of something, and then we wait and see. I mean, who doesn't want a vaccine? Good night. Who doesn't want a vaccine? Next story, please, and then we'll go to the next one, and let's go into the Alex Erpy sizzle reel, and then Lee Elberson, we'll go to you. Okay, so Lee, we'll go to you in a couple minutes here. Live in 12 different Facebook pages. Hit the like button right now. Thank you, Barbara Lundgren. Thank you, Kelly Jackson. Thank you, Lisa Herndon. Okay, we're going to Alex at 1, is what you're saying? Oh, Alex's sizzle reel is 5 minutes long. All right, that's a good heads up. Good heads up from Judah. We'll play the sizzle reel, Lee, after. Ray Cadell, thank you for sharing. We'll play the sizzle reel afterwards. All right, let's have some fun here. Skipping Rock is opening on in Midtown on West Main. This beer brand from Stanton is the newest addition, and you're rotating those 4 photos, J-Dubs? Thank you. Look on the screen, guys. This is right where the old Hardywood used to be, right there at the T of West Main and what is that, 10th Street? Okay, right where Hardywood used to be. I love the beer. Their New England IPA is super legit. It's super legit. These guys took over, I'm going to tell you a little story here. These guys took over for Hardywood. We broke the news on the I Love CVille Network that Hardywood was closing its Charlottesville taproom. These guys took over from Hardywood. Their headquarters is in Stanton, in the Stanton area. They took over for Hardywood in a location that all of us are waiting to see whether it can work. We're concerned because there's not a really great place to park in that location, and you're very reliant on support from that building, which is students that don't have a lot of disposable income. There's student apartments above the brewery. So you hope you can get walk-by traffic from locals. Well, that may be tougher in a COVID-19 landscape, right? So this brewery takes over for Hardywood right before COVID breaks out. Like, a smart move, does not open because of COVID. Now, over the last 24 hours, says on Facebook, we're going to reopen our Midtown Charlottesville tap room. So cojones and props to them. Jason, the founder, is going to come on this program next week to talk about the opening of this Midtown tap room. The beer is super good. This is what I'm going to be watching with this brewery. I love their ownership team. I love their beer man, their brewmaster. I love their sales guys. I love their beer brand ambassadors. I love their beer. I love Skipping Rock's beer. The New England IPA is really good. Someone get Jason or the New England or the Skipping Rock guys on the show now. I love Skipping Rock's beer and their brand. What I need to see from that location is I need to see a commitment to some kind of food that's going to keep people around longer than 1 or 2 beers. I loved going to Hardywood. I loved their gingerbread stout, their great return. Their commitment to food at that location was below average, and that's saying it nicely. As a result, you could have 1 or 2 beers before you had to find somewhere to get absorbers in your belly to continue staying at the bar. Another very concerning aspect of that is the walk-by traffic, the lack of parking, and when Hardywood was running that location, it was very sterile. It did not have a sports environment. It was very sterile. So I think it has potential, and I love the team behind Skipping Rock. I just want to see how they open, and I want to see what happens. Judo, why don't we go to Lee here? I'm Skyping him now, in fact. Lee, we're going to go to you now. A lot I want to cover with this man. Smart guy, Lee Elberson. He's on the line. He has a phenomenal studio at his disposal. Judah, can I get your green light when we can welcome him on the show, sir? Okay, we do. We have him. All right, so Lee, you're live. You're looking sharp. I like the branding on screen here. Very smart move to put the branding on screen. That's clever. I'm going to throw this question to you. We did the lead of yesterday's show about the governor's announcement on this reopening, and I was so confused by it. And dude, I probably had like 18 DMs, text messages, like from moms and dads, like, we're so freaking confused, we don't know what's going on here. You are one of the smartest guys we know, seriously, out there. I'm going to get out of your way on your topic. Thank you for coming on the show. And what did you make of the governor's announcement yesterday?
Well, thanks, and you're also setting me up for failure. I know some things about a few specific subjects. Education and small business in Charlottesville tend to be on those lists, but anything outside of that, maybe there's not much. Yeah, I think this is consistent with what everyone's feeling right now. We don't know exactly what the right roadmap is to starting schools again. What we do know is that the under-resourced population and under-resourced students have been hit the hardest. They're not able to get a great internet connection, or maybe there's not a good spot at the house to learn, and so that's a big push to trying to get us back to in person. I think there's some staggering statistics. I think is we work with a program at CHS, and 42% of CHS students are on free or reduced lunch. So that gives you an idea of the magnitude of what you're trying to support here. And so I think in terms of reopening, if you look at the way it's phased, it's in the initial stages, it was very easy. It's like, everything has to be remote. You can't do this. You can't do this. As we stagger back in, you see a lot of ambiguity in the phases, right? It's like, okay, well, special attention will be given to social distancing, possible temperature checks, potential requirements of masks. Okay, so there's so much ambiguity. I think what it's going to require is we're going to need to get a really good gauge on what the parents and the students feel is safe to them. It's not unlike what we're doing in the business community. And so, I think, to me, the under-resourced population is already a disadvantage because they have to make the decision: do you want to sacrifice your safety at some level, or do you just not want to go to school? If you have resources and you can attend the classes virtually, that's a major issue. And I think that's what the school system is trying to do. So everyone should have questions. There's no strict guidance right now, and the guidance that's going to come from the Virginia Department of Health and CDC, those are going to be minimum guidelines. Again, it's going to have to be, what do the teachers, parents, and students want to make them feel safe? And that's what the schools are probably going to do. Is they're sending out those surveys and finding out what those three stakeholders think.
I love when this guy comes on the program. He makes the show better. The questions are already coming in live on 12 Facebook pages, guys. If you have questions for Lee Elberson about public school education, homeschool education, private school education, standardized testing, and tutoring, this guy is a freaking knowledge resource here. So I'm going to go 2 questions from moms here. Question from mom coming in. Should I be homeschooling my kids here in the fall semester with what we're knowing from the governor?
Great question. If I was a parent, I would be thinking about homeschooling, because one thing that's not even being covered is how on earth are the public school systems going to make up for lost ground? Like, we're not looking at fixing this year, next. This is going to last 5 years. So this is a major inflection point in any public school student's education. And so unless your student has been spending or plans to spend the entire summer picking up on lost ground, even then they're going to come back into a school system that's going to be trying to play catch up. So I'll be honest, homeschooling and using as many resources as you can is a definite option right now.
When does the homeschooling get to that threshold where it's like the mom or dad is not at that point where it can deliver the value proposition of the education for the kid, because the curriculum is just getting to that point where they don't see it every day and it's too hard? And the mom and dad is like, oh my gosh, what is this? I mean, where are we at? Is there kind of like a threshold there? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's still, but I mean, the other question is, do you have time as a parent to spend 4 hours with your students in intense focus? And then you probably have to spend 2 hours doing review, because do you remember how SOHCAHTOA and triangles and stuff work? Probably not, because you don't use it in your everyday life. And so you have to pay for something. Either you're going to have to pay for some sort of educational support service, pay for a tutor to help you out. You're going to have to pay for leave from your business. Now, maybe what this turns into is maybe students need to start taking ownership of their lives much earlier, right? We've been supported by the school system, which at its very core has been an educational daycare. It's been a place where your kids can go off and they provide a learning environment where they not only learn from the teachers, but they learn from each other. Now the onus might be put on the students. Hey, look, you're 11 years old. We need you to take ownership of your life. You have to tell us what you're struggling with, and we will plug you into the right support system. So I think that's what's going to come out of this.
Sine opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine opposite over adjacent.
Jerry, these people don't want you to
tangent. Okay, all right. You're right. Here's another question that's coming in. Jerry, please don't use my name. I love your show. Please ask your guest this question. My husband and I were already thinking about setting our son or daughter to private school. This is pushing us in that direction even harder. Can you ask your guest about this?
I've been saying this, and I think I said this in a few other shows. The value proposition for private schools has never been higher. When you look at the types of schools that were extremely successful in this transition, it was small private schools like Regents and Renaissance. Obviously Tandem and Covenant and St. Anne's. They also did a great job because they took exactly what they did and they transitioned it to a learning environment, and those schools were very successful. So yes, I will say that the value proposition for private schools has never been higher.
You are a process and systems guy. Break down the challenges of, just say, 3rd grade at a public school in Charlottesville in the fall of what we can expect. Give us like some, like put a face to it of how hard it is to take a public school with this bureaucracy and this much like, it's hard to pivot something like this, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's not there's not a lot of blame to put on the public schools. It's an almost impossible problem that they're trying to solve. When you look especially at younger students, younger under-resourced students have the least amount of options as any other, because even if they could find a way to learn virtually, younger students just aren't adapting as well to learning virtually. So the school systems are doing their best to provide that education level and provide to them in a socially distanced way that still fits under the guidelines of the Department of Health and CDC. And so that's what they're planning out right now. And which students do you, like, let's say that you can only give it to 30% of the class and 50% of them ask for in-person sessions. How do you make that judgment? So they have to redesign an entire curriculum, basically. And so when you look at like what this phase-in plan is called, it's called Recover, Redesign, and Restart. Recover, we'll be able to do that to the best we can. We're going to restart. Redesign, there's not enough time. This takes years to redesign a curriculum. So they're putting this together ad hoc, and they're going to do the best they can. But it's going to be a serious detraction, and I hope that there's many people. I know that there's people in the school board who are considering even some extreme options, like let's throw out the playbook and let's think about like how we can redesign this. And I hope that those suggestions are not falling on deaf ears.
Wow, smart guy. What am I missing here? You're making everybody smarter here. What are we missing here? What's a storyline we're missing with the reopening or where we're going? What's like, and I want to get into the ACT and the SAT stuff with UVA and get your take on that because I know you have a hot take. What am I missing? Educate us on anything. Your show is yours.
Wow, Jerry, you always kind of just offer it up to me. So, I think, I've been keeping up with your shows, and, I think there's, in terms of like reopening the economy and reopening the schools, there's this false dichotomy, especially in business, that like this capitalistic nature, it's capitalism and greed versus just staying at home. And that's not what's happening in the small business world. The local economy, these are people that own these businesses. These are people who like barely make enough to support themselves and support for their employees. And so it's the job of every business owner to interview your employees and your customers and to open in the safest way possible. Then, as a consumer, you make the decision. Is this business undergoing the safety guidances that I'm comfortable with? Do I want to go out to eat? Do I want to order? Do I just want to not go out? Do I want to wear a mask? That's on the consumer, but the businesses have to provide them with that opportunity. Otherwise, we're gonna see so many businesses fail by the end of the summer. I mean, there's already businesses that are going to fail. We're going to do our best to keep this community going, because if a business fails, those people are on unemployment. Unemployment goes back on the employer. That business is just going to get cratered, and so it's going to cost us more to have to restart these businesses than to keep them alive now. So anyone who's looking to get involved, Community Investment Collaborative is becoming the hub for supporting small businesses. It's not just Charlottesville and Albemarle, it's all the surrounding counties. I think the racial tension is very high right now, and we support businesses from people of color, under-resourced individuals. And if you want to help, you give us $10, $50, you want to donate time, you want to help provide guidance, contact us. This is how you can help these small businesses.
Great take right there. Great take. Give us a tangible way of how you've done it at CIC, like a boots on the streets way.
Yeah. So, the education has always been a big piece. You can't give anyone money without oversight. I think we're going to see a lot of the PPP funding fail in that way. There wasn't a whole lot of guidance into best use it, and that guidance is still changing. So CIC is rooted on helping to train entrepreneurs and how to run a business. And if you come from an under-resourced background, maybe you never graduated high school. That's fine. You don't have to graduate. We will teach you all the tools. And so the 16-week workshop is always paramount. We do a lot of mentoring, and those programs have still continued through COVID. In terms of funding, we're just finishing the $600,000 in funds that were in the Business Recovery Fund.
Nice.
$300,000 was given to us by the city of Charlottesville, and there was an organization that decided to donate another $300,000. So this is going to be a layered approach. We are exploring grant opportunities, and we're thinking that we're going to do our best to just get these resources out within the next 6 months to a year. Is going to probably look at the runway to support businesses. So we've given away more, we've provided funds and grants more this year than the previous 6 years of CIC combined.
Nice.
So this is just coming to the calling of businesses saying, I don't even know what to do. It's okay. So we're going to get you through the next couple months, and then let's work on a mentorship to help you plan strategically. So that's what the CIC does. I say us. I just chair the board. I do 0.8% of the work. All the rest of the work is done by the staff and the volunteers.
I love this guy. I love this guy. What did you make of the UVA? We saw this coming, especially with the peers doing it, with the de-emphasis, deprioritization of the SAT and other standardized tests for the fall of 2021. You saw that coming.
100%. Yeah. The test optional movement is not anything new. And, I'll say it like I always do. In an ideal world, a standardized test is an excellent idea. If you can have an unbiased test that helps you gauge somebody who grew up in the sticks in Louisiana to somebody who grew up, in the Hamptons, and you have a way to benchmark them, that's great, because we know that there's a lot of variation in grades. There's a lot of grade inflation, and there's sometimes even more resource dependence on grades, right? You can pay for tutors. There's all these discrepancies between under-resourced and resourced individuals. So I think now what we're seeing is that there are definitely some racial and gender biases inherent in these tests, and even more than that is it tends to favor those who have resources. You can't ever get around that problem. If somebody has resources, they're going to be able, whatever you're gauging them on, they can help you write a better essay. They can help you communicate better. They have more time, right? If you can pay for time, you will always do better at something. So there's no way to get rid of that. And taking away tests completely is going to make it more dependent on GPA and extracurriculars, and those already have resource dependencies. So I would think a better thing to do is what they're doing is they're going test optional and saying, okay, let's say you don't have the time to prepare for this test, or we're going to put you in a different pool. And so that pool, though, unfortunately, has a GPA requirement, right? You can't just apply without a standardized test. You have to have a certain GPA requirement. So, there's a lot baked into it. I think it's just as much a political move as it is a strategic one.
Do you think it waters down? Do you think it could water down the quality of a student body at a school like UVA?
I don't think it'll. I don't think it necessarily will water it down. I think it makes it harder to find out if the student can take the academic rigor, because universities want to make sure that they're setting students up for success. 4-year graduation days, that's major on their priority list. And if you take in a student who maybe is not ready for that type of rigor, they're going to flunk out in a couple years, and then that's terrible for the student. Their self-esteem has just been crushed. It's not great for the university. And so that's what standardized tests in some ways help you do. It said, hey, either you have the aptitude because you didn't prep for this test and you did really well, or you prepared for it and you showed that if you prepare for something, you can reach this level. And so that's my case for it. Obviously, the cases against it are evident, that if you have money to pay for tutoring, you will definitely do better on these tests. And so it's a mixed bag. I think that there will always be a place for standardized tests.
I love it. Okay, get us out of here on this note. You've crushed this. Out of here on this note, okay? And Clayborne Education, guys, I love what he's doing at Clayborne Education. I love what he's doing at CIC. We're going to find out what this man's doing at 8 Hats. More on that, because I think it's going to be very successful. Get us out of here on this take here. Are you bullish or bearish, Charlottesville, Virginia, for the remaining 6 months of the year? How do you look at the remaining 6 months and going into 2021? Are you long or short?
Just clarify that a little bit more for you.
How do you
What
think
mean
this? How
longer?
do you think this community is going to do in the next 6 months?
I think we're going to continue. I think I think we're going to improve, but I'm not sure if the economy has seen the worst of it yet. I think that there's going to be.
So
a
you're
cliff and fall
bearish.
off
You're bearish.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're bearish for the next six.
I don't. Yeah.
Well, next 6 months.
I am. I hate to say it. I think so. I mean, I'm doing my best to try to make sure that that's not the case. You know, I mean, CIC. Another thing I didn't mention, I probably should. The Better Future Foundation, our website launched today. BetterFutureFound.org. It's a way to help students of color from under-resourced background, first-generation college students. They need your help more than ever. So reach out to us. We're happy to take volunteers and donations. And so, yeah, I think that's what people want now. You want to find a way to give back to the community? Here's at least 2 ways, and there's like 50 to 100 more nonprofits that help in this community.
I appreciate you. It was tough for you to say bearish, wasn't it? Because you're such a positive guy.
I'm such an optimist, right? I want to. I look at numbers, Jerry. I don't.
I know. Yeah. That's why I asked you, because I knew you looked at the numbers and you're analytical here. I respect your take, and I think people do. And I think people respect you even more because it was hard to say that, and you were just being honest. I mean, that's what you feel. You crushed it, man. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for everything. We will reach out to you again in the future.
Always love being on your show, Jerry. Thanks so much.
Thank you. You have a good one.
Bye. You too.
He's a sharp guy. He's a sharp guy. So we just gave you 20 minutes of ear candy for your soul for education in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. A lot right there. Homeschooling versus private versus public school. You have a guy who works in all aspects of education here saying the value proposition for private education has never been stronger. You know, if you're strategically running private schools across Central Virginia and private schools across the Commonwealth, if you were strategically running them, you would be investing money right now into a very strong advertising campaign. Because you have an opportunity, I think, to uptick your student body enrollment 10, 15%. Because I'm hearing from so many people, and I'm hearing from insiders like Lee Elberson, that the value proposition of a private school education has never been stronger, and he championed the concept of homeschooling for the fall. You obviously saw his concern with what's happening with public schools, and that's no knock on public schools. No knock. But how do you run... How do you try to win a 5K race when you have 500 pounds of weight in a backpack on your back? You can't win the race. And it's just another example is, how do you take, if you're on a boat and you need to be nimble, you want to be on something that can pivot and move quickly, not a big barge. And they just can't pivot quickly. I want to get to the Alex sizzle reel from yesterday, and then we'll get to your comments. So guys, now's the time in the comment section of any of the 12 Facebook pages to share some thoughts, some comments, some perspective. I will relay that commentary after this sizzle reel. So put it in the comment section, give the show a like and a share on any of these 12 Facebook pages. Yesterday, we had Alex on the program. He's the president of Forward Adelante. And Forward Adelante is a magazine and a media publication that's local, that offers tremendous coverage of the Hispanic community in and around Charlottesville. And as we try to be diverse with the content we offer, diverse with the ear candy localized for your soul that we offer, we wanted to take a look into the Hispanic community and how a protest and how a murder of a George Floyd not only impacted the Hispanic community, but how it feels as citizens in our community, whether it feels comfortable or not. He had a very valuable perspective and take. Judah, let's play that sizzle reel in 3, 2, and 1. It's important to discuss the murder of George Floyd. Throw that to you. I respect your opinion. I want to get out of your way on the topic, and then I want to get a little bit deeper as we get back to opportunities within the community that you want to highlight. But first, your thoughts on George Floyd.
Such a terrible circumstance. I know it's funny that it's good that you bring it up because it connects so much to what we do. I was reading a very incredible article by an African American who is a senior executive up at a very large Wall Street firm, and he pointed out 4 things that I think basically are how I feel about the subject, which is, first off, we definitely need to deal with the very long-standing implications in this country of how African Americans have been treated. And it goes very deep. And I think it goes even, I'm going to be honest, he had written this and I agree with it. It goes even deeper, I think, than just policing. There are definitely changes to be made to policing. I mean, as someone where one half of my family came from a fascist state and the other half from a communist police state, when you have bad policing, it can infect every corner of your society. And I think African Americans have seen that in this country more than most. But he made an excellent point, this gentleman, that you can deal with many of the societal implications, but until we deal with the fact that there is a generational wealth gap between minorities, African Americans in particular, and the rest of the country, you are still going to be dealing with racial disparities because you're dealing with socioeconomic disparities that are the result of past racist policies. So until we really work on that, and that comes down to housing, Habitat for Humanity is working there. That comes down to businesses, because probably if you don't have a home to pass down to your child, what do you have to pass down in terms of generational wealth and really grow the wealth of Latino and especially Black families? And that's your business. That is how until you're able to afford home ownership and you're not renting anymore, you are going to need to pass down that business. So we need to be able to help Black minority business owners to generate wealth. Because as long as you're just generating income and paying it off in rent, you're not closing the wealth gap. You're sustaining, but we obviously, as the murder of George Floyd shows, right, it's not good enough. Where we are in terms of sustaining and keeping the status quo, that's enough. And it shouldn't be good enough for our Black brothers and sisters. So really we need to be closing that gap, and that's in the Black community. And this gentleman from up in Wall Street, I forget if it was Goldman Sachs, I believe, African American, very high position there. He made an excellent point, which is, let's face it, many societies protect vested economic interests. If you have a vested economic interest, society tends to have an interest in protecting you. Right? And right now, what is one of the things that is sorely lacking in the Black and the Latino community is vested economic power. There's just the economic power that we have as consumers has not translated yet into economic power as businesses. We're still taking our hard-earned money and giving it to other business owners, not our own communities. So we need to get to the point where Latino and Black business owners are generating wealth in our own community and growing from there, because then there will be so much more pressure on society to look and say, you know what, even the most self-interested parts of society will say we need to be protecting these people. You cannot have a scenario where you have Black business owners that are generating wealth and the community is so powerful because they're there, and then they're going for a jog and getting murdered. So that, as it may seem, I would say, cynical to say, but I think this gentleman was spot on in terms of when you have economic power, you begin to see societal power as well. And that's gonna, at some point, that's gonna have to change as well as, so it's not as opposed to reform and policing, but as well as, because we can change all the policing rules we want, but as long as we have African Americans and Latinos living in poverty, that we're still going to see racial disparities, and so that needs to change. We have to work on that.
He's fantastic. I mean, Alex is fantastic. He's the president of Forward Adelante, the magazine that offers coverage of the Hispanic community in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Just a mental giant in Alex. Thank you for coming on the program and sharing such real perspective. To the comments here. So this is a really valuable one from Lisa Herndon. And Lisa Herndon is a viewer of the program that I love. She's watched the show for a long time, and she makes a really good comment. And Lisa makes this comment in response to the interview that we had with Lee Elberson. So Lee Elberson and I were analyzing what's going to happen in the fall with education from a homeschool standpoint, from a private school standpoint, and a public school standpoint. That's what we want to know. There's so much uncertainty of what is going to happen at the end of August for our children as they go back to school or do not go back to school. So Lisa asked this: are we suggesting that those with economic resources abandon the public school system? It's a great comment. I am not suggesting that mom and dads with money in their pockets take their kids out of public schools and put them in private schools. I am not suggesting that. What I am saying is someone that uses common sense and analytical thinking to get through life. I think what's going to happen, and so does Lee, that parents will pull their kids, some of them, not all of them, and I'm not even talking a majority, but a percentage, no doubt, will pull their kids from public school and either homeschool them or put them in private school. And we're going to see that push happen at a greater level than we've seen in the short little while. We'll see. The same mindset that we've used to predict New York City and Boston and Philadelphia and Northern Virginia flooding urban environments for suburban environments and coming to Charlottesville and Central Virginia to get away from living in the city, the same mindset that we used where we predicted that correctly, we're using that same mindset when understanding what's going to happen with education maybe over the next 12 to 24 to 36 months. James Watson says this, and it's a great comment from James Watson. I love James Watson. Jerry and viewers, I foresee people forming small neighborhood homeschools with groups of about 6 to 8 kids. I foresee that as well. I think that is undoubtedly something that's going to happen, where you're going to have a couple of mom and dads on a street in a neighborhood with 5, 6, 7, 8 kids, still getting this. Like, guys, when you're in first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, isn't interacting and learning to sit down and keeping your hands to yourself and peeing in the potty and not picking your nose and just being quiet and following the rules and going to nap time, when you're in the first, second, and third grade, isn't that as important as what you're learning? The curriculum? The curriculum is how to figure out society, how to function in society. So if we take away the interaction with your little buddies, you're crippling a huge component of what you're learning and what you're figuring out. It's not just 1 + 1 is 2, A, B, C, D, cat is spelled C-A-T. It's sitting next to Jessica Pasco and being able to keep your hands to yourself and not embarrass yourself just because you think she's cute in the 3rd grade and you don't know how to act next to her because you have these feelings and you haven't figured out. That's what it's about. Crazy stuff, man. I love you guys. Thank you for joining us on today's show. Tomorrow, We have another good program. Tomorrow we're going to have Real Talk with Keith Smith at 10:15 a.m. We'll talk real estate, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness tomorrow from 10:15 to 11:15 a.m. with Real Talk with Keith Smith on the I Love CVille Network. Then at 12:30, the I Love CVille Show. Lisa, you made us better today with that comment. I really appreciate your comment. Lisa adds this. I agree that the public schools are not ready to open. I say that as a mom with 2 daughters in Albemarle High School. I definitely don't want to turn back the hands of time with further segregation, seeking great disparity of wealth. Amen. Amen, Lisa. I'm worried about that, Lisa. Lisa, I am so worried about that. I'm so worried about that, of the wealth gap and segregation being amplified here because of COVID. I'm so worried about that. Like, if you're a mom or dad, like I would do, and you don't experience this until you have kids yourself. Okay? And the moms undoubtedly have, and I will say this, the moms undoubtedly have a stronger connection with their son or daughter than the dads. And the dads have a really strong connection. But how can a dad have the same connection when the son or daughter comes out of the mom and not the dad? Of course, if you're a mom or dad, you are going to do anything humanly possible for your kid. Dude, I would and I didn't understand this until Trey was born. I would do anything humanly possible for him. Even if that puts mom and dad in a hard spot, he always is going to come first. So of course this is going to happen. When we see one option is not ready for opening, one option homeschooling, maybe we can control more. The other option, maybe it stretches the bank account a little bit, but we know our kid that we would do anything for is in a best spot for it. Of course that's going to happen. This is the I Love CVille Show. I love you guys. We will see you tomorrow at 10:15 with Real Talk. Hey, be the best version of yourself, okay? Take care.